The USFL is definitely fascinating enough to write a book about, but what compelled you the most to write Football for a Buck?
Well, I mean, I'm probably like you guys, like with the XFL. Like, I grew up loving the USFL. I'm a kid of the 80s. I was addicted to it. I love the teams. I love the team names. I love the helmets. I love the way they were taking on the NFL. I was just hooked as a kid, 10 years old, first year. And I was always fascinated by it. I always thought there was something there to write about. When I was a senior in high school, Mayo Pack, New York, for my English class, we had to write a 20-page paper as our final thing. And I wrote 40 pages on the USFL. And
Wow.
I just was always that guy. I was always fascinated. I mean, I always say, like, funny, I went to my daughter's back-to-school night at high school the other night. I can't even imagine being a teacher and some kid handing in a 40-page paper. There's no way my teacher read that whole paper, and I would not blame him at all.
So you just took that, and that ended up being the book.
Yeah, it actually is a book. I didn't do it. I spent the last year kicking up on a couch. My 40-page thesis. That's
I wasn't old enough to be around at that time, but were there like certain groups that were really diehard USFL at the time?
That's interesting. I mean, the thing is, you have to remember, it's not like now when people formed online clubs and groups and you could have meetups and blah, blah, blah. Well, you weren't going to have a Facebook page devoted to the New Jersey Generals in 1983. What you had that was interesting is certain teams fostered a real sort of community because, you know, like the San Antonio Gunslingers, the Oklahoma Outlaws based out of Tulsa, like they were the only show in town, you know? So that was what did it. And you'd have fierce loyalty to certain franchises. Now, you might have only had 100 people who were fiercely loyal, but the people who were viewed the team as their own. And that was a pretty powerful thing. So they're still on, you know, on Facebook now. There's a San Antonio Gunslingers, lovers Facebook page. There's a Houston Gamblers lovers Facebook page. There's just these diehard collections of people left and right, you know.
And I understand why too, because I mean it was so creative, and it was also a place. I guess it kind of seems like misfit fans almost, or people. I don't know. Were those people also fans of NFL teams? I mean, most of them were in cities that didn't have NFL teams, but it seemed like a rowdier bunch at a USFL game back then.
I would say so. I mean, a lot of the teams dressed as cheerleaders like hookers. You know, the New Jersey Generals don't actually buy Donald Trump. Went out of their way. I mean, it's embarrassing looking back how they dress those women. It's ridiculous. But a lot of teams dressed it, sexed it up in huge ways. The other thing is that the USFL did very wisely is they made the players insanely accessible. So the Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, the supermarket opening, the library reading hour. There's your Tampa Bay Bandit quarterback. There's your Denver Gold linebacker. They were all there. So, you know, it forged a very tight sense of community. This is way before the NFL had people working for them who specifically dealt with outreach. The USFL was all about outreach. Also, they were, you know, the NFL back then and still now, they really marketed the teams more than the players. You know, you were a Steelers fan or you were a Cowboys fan. The USFL went out of its way to market the players, so you would form connections with a Herschel Walker, a Kelvin Bryant, a Doug Williams. And I think that really fostered a sense of loyalty.
A little bit more about the book. Yeah, so you did countless interviews in your research. Could you give us just one really crazy story you heard from it?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's actually 8,000. When someone asks me that question, I get asked that question a lot. And it's like an encyclopedia in my head of weird, crazy, insane stories that make no sense. Like, just as an example, the Washington Federal starting quarterback was Joe Gilliam, who actually was Terry Bradshaw's backup with the Steelers from Tennessee, Jefferson Street Joe. And by the time he got to the USFL, he was a full-fledged cocaine addict. And when they signed him, he played with the Denver Gold. Denver Gold released him. Washington signed him. The Federals sent Rick Vaughn, their PR guy, to pick him up at the airport. And Rick, who's been the longtime Tampa Bay Rays PR guy actually now, was only 24 at the time. And he goes to pick Joe Gilliam up at the airport. And Joe Gilliam has him stop at a package store so he can get a beer for the drive. And so they're driving, and he's drinking a beer, this reform addict. And he winds up spending part of the season with Washington living in his Oldsmobile, and then the other half in a halfway house for drug addicts. Literally starting quarterback at times for the Washington Federals. You know, it's absolutely insane. The San Antonio Gunslingers just stopped paying their players, and the owner started handing out these promissory notes that were never paid. And they also have the best injury in the history of all injuries. The Gunslingers had to put a person on the injured list because he slammed his penis in a trunk. Not a trunk of a car, like a trunk in the clubhouse. Like somehow his penis got stuck in a trunk. And they listed it, I think, as a strained groin, but it actually was bruised penis. That same team, just because they're the most, you could do a movie on the San Antonio Gunslingers, it would be so good. That same team, the owner was insane. His name was Clinton Angus. He was just insane. He decided their punter, they had a punter who used to be a New England Patriot named Ken Hardney, decided he wasn't very good. And he decided not only was he not good, but that the guy who took care of his ranch would be a better punter. So his name was Buddy Roberts. He was a punter in Trier High School like a decade and a half earlier. And somehow this guy decided, I need to sign Buddy Roberts, my ranch hand, to punt for the team. So he signs him to a contract. The general manager was like, what the hell are we doing? The coach was like, what the hell are we doing? Clint Mangus didn't care. This guy can punt. So he shows up at practice. He can't punt a lick. You know, he needs 4 steps just to get a punt off. They're going 20 yards. But Clint Mangus insists he dresses for a game. To actually dress him for a game in Portland against the Portland Breakers. And the PR guy for the team was a guy named Greg Singleton. And he told one of the coaches, please hide Buddy Roberts behind someone the whole game because I don't want the media seeing him and thinking that we actually just signed a ranch hand. I can't explain that. How am I going to explain that to the media, that we just signed the owner's ranch hand? So literally the whole game, a coach is standing in front of number 8 of the Gunslingers, so no one will see him. And after the game, the coach says, I can't do this. And the owner agrees to allow Buddy Roberts to return to the ranch.
Oh, my goodness. The Gunslingers sound legendary. I always heard stories about the Tampa Bay Bandits being a wild bunch, but what that 30 for 30 that came out doesn't do the USFL justice, I think, for some of the stories you're telling in this book, Jeff. I'm super excited to read it. And, of course, the big thing everyone talks about with the USFL is that Donald Trump got involved, bought the Generals there, and eventually swayed everybody to move it from being a spring league to a fall league. How was he able to do that? Did he just have more money than everybody?
I mean, it worked out great. Look, all these USFL teams absorbed into the NFL. It's fantastic. I'm just kidding. It's horrible. It's a freaking joke. No, that's the funny thing. He was not the richest owner or even close to the richest owner. What happened is, well, a couple of things happened. He bought the New York team, the New Jersey team, the Generals, after one season. So 83, they were owned by someone else. 84, he buys them. And in the lead-up, he says how much he loves the USFL, and it's a great league. And as soon as he gets the Generals, we need to move to fall. We have to move to fall. We have to move to fall. First meeting. This is a joke. Why are we in spring? We need to move to fall. Toxic calls the New York Times. We need to move to fall. Literally, the commissioner of the USFL, Seth Simmons, gets a call one day from the New York Times. I'm about to run a story where your owner of the New Jersey franchise says you need to move to fall. It's like, what are you talking about? So Trump had in his head, he wanted an NFL franchise. They had in his head that the only way to get an NFL franchise was to force the NFL's hand. And you would force the NFL hand by moving to fall, and either you sue them or they'll just want to merge and avoid any lawsuit. It was the power of his bombast. You know, I mean, he's not the wealthiest, not one of the 5,000 wealthiest Americans, but he's president of the United States in large part because he's the loudest talker and he's really good at that and self-promotion. So he pushed the idea of fall, promised the other owners that he could get a TV deal in the fall, just went on and on about it, and ultimately he led this lawsuit against the NFL. He convinced the other owners that fall move would make sense. They sued the NFL, and famously, they won the lawsuit, but they won $1 because the jury, while the jury thought, yes, the NFL has colluded against the USFL, the USFL is largely at fault for this. And, you know, Trump walked away, and years later he called it all small potatoes. It didn't really matter to him.
Yeah, he looked back at it like it was nothing, to him. But that affected so many players, so many owners. The USFL left a lasting impact on millions of people. And to Donald Trump, it was, small potatoes. Vince, you wanted to ask Jeff, we were talking earlier about how the USFL was able to get all these Heisman Trophy winners and how the XFL has no hope in hell of doing that. What was your question for Jeff about that?
Yeah. I mean, can we even compare, the USFL and XFL together, considering, one is essentially a developmental type league, and the other one, actually tried to legitimately compete. You just touched on it, going to head and even having, big time name players on the field.
Yeah. No, but I actually think if anything's going to save the XFL or the Alliance, the other league, is that they're not trying to be the NFL. The USFL made huge mistakes financially. Like, all right, the Herschel Walker signing made sense. He was the first big sort of shot of the USFL. He put USFL on the map. They're on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Okay, makes sense. Also, he just finished his junior year. The NFL wasn't taking guys. You had to be a senior at that point. The NFL was not drafting guys. Okay. Then they signed Mike Rozier to crazy money. And Mike Rozier just wasn't that great of a player. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. Then they signed Doug Flutie to crazy money. Doug Flutie was a 5'9" quarterback who he probably would have been a 4th round, 5th round NFL pick. The USFL just lost its head collectively, and the spending was insane. I actually think one of these two new leagues, maybe both, they have a chance by not taking out the NFL, by not signing the Heisman Trophy winner, by going regional. If you're going to have a team in Omaha, get as many Nebraska teams players as you can find. You want fans to feel a part of it all. You want fans to feel like they grew up watching these guys. It's just, you got to be smart what you're doing. The USFL lost its intellect. It took a very smart plan, spring football, slow growth, not going to spend too much, regional development, and just blew it up into bits.
Yeah, and the USFL, the spring football was working and getting people interested, and that's what it looks like the AAF, at least, the Alliance, they're going to take it slowly and try to do that same exact plan. The XFL, they're saying one thing, but then with Vince McMahon, you never know how big they might try to make this thing, Jeff. Can a football league in America succeed in the spring, though? Does the AAF or XFL have a chance, do you think? Because no league's really done it since the USFL.
I do. I really do. But I think it has to be this. I swear to God, I really mean this. You're the quarterback of the Omaha whatevers, and the NFL calls, the Baltimore Ravens call, and they like what you're doing, and they want to sign you. If you're the Omaha whatevers, you have to let that person sign. You have to. And not only that, you have to celebrate it. You have to be, look, you come out here to whatever stadium in Omaha, you might see the next quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. You might see the next running back for so-and-so. You're also going to see the kid you grew up. I would tell the stories of the kid who grew up in Omaha playing football in his backyard, and now look at him. He's playing pro football for your team. That's sort of how I think you do it. I think the worst thing you can do, and I don't think they're planning on it, is say, look, we stole this guy from the NFL, and we're paying him more than the Ravens would pay him, and yay, look at us, and now we're the best team in the whatever league, but the other teams can't keep up with us because we're outspending them. You don't want that. That's a recipe for disaster. John Bassett said something really intelligent. He was the owner of the Tampa Bay Bandits. He said, once you start spending crazily, there's no turning back. Like, it's not like the USFL could have signed Herschel Walker and then said, okay, now we're not going to spend any more money on anyone. Like, once you do it, once you make that mistake, it's done and you're over.
That's a good point, Jeff. Alan and myself being huge Steeler fans, I mean, who would have thought, that in the next starting quarterback for the Steelers was playing in the XFL, being Tommy Maddox. Exactly. Who would ever thought that? And if you would have known at the time, you probably would have paid a little bit more attention to it.
I agree. And I think, like, if the XFL had survived, that would have been a smart thing to celebrate. This guy, we gave him, he was down and out. He went to UCLA. He was a Denver Bronco. His career was over. We gave him his rejuvenation, and now he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. Come watch the XFL. Come watch the San Francisco Demons, and you're going to see that you could see the next quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers on his revival. I just think that's the way to sell a league, not we're better than the NFL.
That and maybe getting celebrity co-owners like Burt Reynolds, Jeff, who just passed away, was a co-owner of the Tampa Bay Bandits. Did you get to interview Burt Reynolds at all in your research for the book?
No, I'm really bummed out. I didn't, and but I got to say, really beloved by the Bandits. He was actually involved. He wasn't just a guy. It's funny. You had Lee Majors with the LA Express was a part owner, $6 million man, and you had Burt Reynolds smoking the Bandits with the Tampa Bay Bandits, and he would show up. He would bring our celebrity friends. He gave at the end of each the first 2 seasons. I know he gave gold belt buckles the first year to all the players, and the second year he gave satin jackets to all the players. A guy who loved being around the Bandits. It was really cool. And he would do promotions for him, show up with like beautiful women on each arm, back in the 80s when cheesy kind of sold. And yeah, I was sad that thinking Boogie Nights, one of my favorite movies of all time,
Yes, yeah. Rest in peace, Jack Horner, forever. We'll all go watch a Jack Horner picture after this podcast. Really appreciate your time, Jeff. Vince, did you have any other questions for him?
Yeah, real quick before we get out of here, Jeff. Do you think maybe in your future we're going to get an XFL book?
The XFL has to last longer than a year. If it turns out to something, I love writing about alternative league. I mean, if you guys haven't read a great book, it's Loose Balls about the ABA by Terry Pluto. It's an amazing, amazing book that really talks about sort of new leagues and what they have to do and how they can survive. The problem with the XFL, if I'm being honest, just not enough name guys came out of it in the first go-round. It's not like there's a Doug Flutie, a Herschel Walker, there's a Tommy Maddox and a He Hate Me. And it's kind of hard to find a lot of guys to hang a promotion on.
That's true. Maybe this new iteration of the XFL will give you something to write about, but the USFL, man, gave you plenty, and you just gave us a taste of those stories. I cannot wait to read them in the new book. We really appreciate your time, Jeff.
Oh, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. Thank you.